Today I'm going to be talking with the yacht designer who designed all of these yachts behind me, starting with the 156-meter dill bar at the top of the list there, and then a descending order of some very significant, amazing designs in his career. I'm of course referring to Espen Oeino, and he'll be talking with us directly from his studio in Monaco in a couple of minutes. And for those of you who are not in the yacht industry, you may not be all that familiar with him, so I'll throw up some of his designs here. He not only has a distinctive style, but he always seems to be several steps ahead of everybody else in the industry. I mean, look at these designs. They're just quite outstanding. This one here, you'll see the amount of glass on 3 decks there. With a big atrium behind that. Here's one of his signature designs here, and you notice the flat angles and the very aggressive look of these vessels. In terms of size, they are humongous and huge, many of them. But his start coming out of school was with this man, Martin Francis. And also in the picture is the yacht that the two of them first collaborated on, called Echo. And we'll get into that right away with Espen, but I just want everybody to understand what a breakthrough yacht this was in 1991. It was powered by a gas turbine engine, a jet engine that was connected to water jets, and it would go over 30 knots at 230 feet is the length, I believe. I mean, it was just such an astounding breakthrough in terms of design and construction at Blohm & Voss. Nothing like this had ever been contemplated to put into a yacht. And considering that Espen was out of school probably only a few months when he got on this project, it's something that I'm looking forward to speaking about. And so here is Espen coming online now from Monaco. Hello, Espen, and welcome to the Yacht Channel video podcast. It's great to have you here. Or to start with, at what point in your youth did you have the urge to become someone that draws boats?
Very early, very, very early. I think from as long as I can recall, I was drawing boats from the moment I could hold a pen in my hand, I guess. But so I was one of the few unfortunate young boys, I guess, who knew all the time what I wanted to do. And therefore it was quite easy. I had a spell when I was I was equally very keen skier and competitive skier. I was kind of hoping that I would make it to the top, which I didn't. So I kind of gave all that up when I was 16 and moved to France to go to do my high school in France, not in the Alps, so in Normandy. And so then I stopped skiing on a daily basis, so to say. And then I decided to, and I became Francophile, all while still wanting to, becoming a boat designer or a naval architect. But through my 3-year stay in northern France, in Normandy, I kind of accidentally got invited down here to the Côte d'Azur and discovered it and immediately felt that, hey, this is a place for me. There was beautiful mountains everywhere, and there are lots of boats and good climate, and they all speak French. It's nice, and I felt it was pretty international as well. So I felt really good about the place. That was back in the early 80s. So after my high school, I went to study naval architecture and offshore engineering in Scotland. And then before my final year, I had an interview with Martin Francis, who was in town. And when I graduated a year later, he asked me to come back and get a full-time employment offer. So
what year was that?
Yeah, that was back in 1986.
You must have just been starting Echo then.
Just had the first contact with the client of the Echo, and I think that was one of the reasons he kind of wanted me back, because I was really the only guy with a degree of naval architecture in the office there. So it was handy. That's why I got so involved with the project, because of the more than naval architectural aspects of the design. It was a pretty ambitious project and program, you know, going fast, big boat going fast, and that's what I got working. I really didn't do much on any sailing boat, to be honest. I got sort of immediately thrown onto that project.
That must have been pretty shocking to go from sailboats to echo.
Yeah, but I mean, a two-speed boat isn't easy to do. He wanted to be able to go across the Atlantic at 18 knots, which wasn't that difficult to do. But he also wanted a sprint speed of over 30 knots. That's a bit more complicated to do, to design, a bit like designing an aircraft for dual speed. In many ways, most aircrafts, they have a reduced speed when they take off and land, so that they do it in a way, but you know, it involves variable geometry wings and slats and slots and everything, flaps. But on a boat where you mostly operate with fixed geometries, it's a bit difficult. It's a bit different. So we looked at, you know, other ships that have a similar operational profile, and many warships, they patrol at slow speed or medium speed, and they have a sprint speed, and they all have a Kodak combined diesel and gas propulsion system. So the inspiration came from there. We discussed it with him, and he was open to the idea, and that's how it evolved. The one thing he was insisting on was waterjet, using waterjets as a propulsor as opposed to propellers in the open water. And this is fine for high speed. The propulsive efficiency is high, and they're great for vibrations and everything. But at slow speed or intermediate speed, like the 18 knots, the propulsive efficiency is not very good. So that was how the foil came about, which was more to help with the 18 knots performance than the high speed performance. So, I mean, gas turbines, there is nothing, you know, rocket science about it. It's actually, I think, a more simple engine than a reciprocating engine, in as much as there is sort of less moving parts and it's moving in one direction only. But the challenge is the integration of the gas turbine into the overall propulsion system, converting the thrust into rotational power. You know, that power is coming out at very high RPMs, reducing that power into and the torque into an acceptable RPM for the water jet. And we had a gearbox that the input shaft was spinning at 7,000 and the output shaft was spinning at 410. And that gearbox was about 4 times the weight of the engine of the gas turbine. So that was the challenges were, you know, those you basically take an aircraft engine, you add a power turbine, which is aerodynamically coupled to the gas turbine, to the aircraft engine, and that power turbine provides input to the gearbox, or to the reduction gear is a better description of it. And then you've got to deal with exhaust gases, high amounts of air both in and out, great variations of temperature, and so on. So, and it's not really an off-the-shelf. The booster water jet was at the time the biggest in the world. The foil we developed to be below the transom, to encourage the flow and to accelerate the flow and create the drier transom at the lower speed, to reduce resistance at intermediate speeds for transatlantic crossing was a first. And another first was, I think it was one of the first yachts to be built in high tensile steel. The hull was in high tensile steel to make it as light and efficient as possible. And the superstructure was actually in composite, which again, over 30 years ago was pretty, yeah. And then of course the famous windows, the by now infamous windows, geometries, which ironically were produced by a company called Flachglas, which means flat glass in Germany. So there were many firsts, and of course Martin and having only designed sailing boats before, and I, in my little position there, having basically designed no boats before. So it was an interesting combination. And I must say, to the credits to the client and to George Nicholson, who were willing to to follow up with us, as there were some other people in the competition, and so
Yeah.
it was an interesting introduction to me, to the yachting market, and as I said, an accidental introduction into the motor yacht market, because I really wanted to design sailing boats. So
Yeah.
today I'm kind of a failed sailboat designer today, but
There's still time.
There's still time, I guess. Yes, there's still
Don't
time.
give up.
It's a
So
highly
fast
specialized
forward,
field.
I guess around 8 years later, you were working on two projects at the same time that were both, again, breakthrough, out of the box. Scat and Octopus.
An octopus, yeah. Yeah, they were interesting projects that kind of, after I started on my own, I guess put me on the map, or put us on the map. Both kind of one-of-a-kind projects, but in different ways. Octopus, again, a very ambitious program, unusual program. I think it was really one of the first big explorer yachts that were designed and built, with an array of toys and tenders and helicopters. And initially, we also had an amphibious plane on board in the drawing stage, but that was replaced with a second helicopter before the boat was delivered. Oh, by the way, Echo also had an amphibious plane on board, but it's now been removed. But yeah, that was very, very exciting projects. And at the same time, we developed Scat, which in terms of her size wasn't, although a 70-meter boat back in those days was still a big project, but it was more about the geometry and the layout, perhaps, with all the guest cabins on the main deck to have bigger windows, and with the sort of angular, very linear geometries in the top sides and the superstructure. I remember when she came out, people either hated her or they loved her, but few people were indifferent, which is actually good. Did the client come to you with some and say, I want it to look like this, or I want it to look like that? Well, no, he had some very clear instructions, which were, he's a very logical man, and he said, listen, I want the design to reflect the material with which we're going to build it. So if it's going to be steel and aluminium, I'd really like to respect the material and use flat intersecting surfaces, because steel and aluminium come in flat plates and profiles. So that was the starting point. And he also wanted big windows, glazed surfaces. So obviously the hull, for hydrodynamic reasons, and particularly the below water part of the hull, but also the bow, had to be, and it was accepted that these parts of the boat had to be in complex surfaces, so to say. For the rest, I tried to interpret that as well as I could. And I remember I was very nervous when I first met with the client, out in Seattle, and I thought he was so specific about it that I thought it was going to be very difficult and very hard to nail it. I met him 4 weeks later, here in Monaco, actually. He had chartered the boat in conjunction with the Formula One Grand Prix, and I met him on board and showed him my first concept sketches. And he just embraced it and said, love it, let's do it. Then about that same time, you must have been working on Octopus. So that was an extremely interesting project as well, with very complex and also a completely different approach to the whole project management and the interaction with the owner, which was completely different. Big teams of particularly of IT people who were involved from the outset, and it was a very, very advanced vessel in many respects, but particularly with regard to the layout, with all the tenders and helicopters and submarines and ROVs, but also in terms of the IT infrastructure at the time. I still remember the figure of 54 tons of AV IT equipment on board, which seemed monumental
Wow.
at the time, and still by today's standard, I think is pretty monumental.
The technological breakthroughs on Octopus were in the IT sector more than the ship itself.
We had a huge IT room on the lower deck and local equipment rooms on each deck. And each cabin had, I think, something like 64 connections to the AV IT system. For artwork where there were touch screens that you could just go in and check who the artists were and everything. It was amazing. It was so far ahead of its time. And then, of course, the basic architecture of the vessel with the big stern dock, because one of the requirements from the client was for all of the toys and tenders and helicopters to be out of view when stowed. So all the tenders had to be basically hidden. So the whole aft ship, basically after midship, is about storage of tenders on either side. Coming up with the unique layout for the big stern dock, which is over 35 meters long, where you can store the big tender inside and the sub and the travel lift and everything. Quite complex engineering, and I must say that the shipyard did an amazing job in actually engineering this, taking it from a concept to a fully working vessel.
Fast forward again to REV.
Yep, to REV, which is another big explorer yacht.
The biggest of all.
The biggest of them all, yes. The mother of all explorers, at least for now. Yes, again, diesel electric, again with shaft lines and props and rudders and stern thrusters. Interestingly enough, we could have adopted pods here, but one of the many considerations that were made was the electromagnetic fields that are created around the pods because the basic in the Azipods, the electric motor is actually in the pod, i.e. in the water. This was the kind of a concern that, to be very frank with you, I had not personally considered before, but it was brought up at an early stage. And it was also felt that it would be better to go with shaft lines and props driven by 2 electric motors. So we have a diesel electric system as on Octopus, but we're also hybrids. So we have a big battery back, which will enable us to go at reduced speed for a certain amount of time, or stay stationary and catering for all the hotel loads with batteries, so as to comply with the new rules and regulations coming in to force in 2025. That part aside, there are many other interesting aspects of REV, which has made it an extremely interesting project to work on. First of all, the owner, who really has a vision as to what he would like to do from day one, and working with him and his team, he's built up a formidable team back home in Norway with great specialists from all around the world, and who are working closely with different scientific communities and colleagues that actually are already operating research vessels. The idea is to have a collaborative approach and sharing experiences, and also sharing the data that will be collected on this vessel during its lifetime. So one of the conditions for actually getting access to REV will be that you'll have to share the data with the scientific community. And that's another pillar in this whole approach. It's an ocean data center. All this is an effort to combat climate change, acidification of the waters, of overfishing, climate change in general, but of course higher temperatures and general pollution. So the vessel has incredible facilities for scientific work, including many labs, wet labs and dry labs, media labs, trawling facilities for pelagic trawling down to 6,000 meters, submarine, ROV, AUVs, autonomous underwater vehicles, and also classrooms and facilities for bringing local people on board when she's visiting part of the world, so that children in particular, but students can contribute to or actually learn from the experiences of REV, and we create awareness in local populations which may not be that well informed about what's going on at the global level. So it's a very, very interesting project, a combination of science, exploration, and yachting, which I think never seen at this level before.
And I'm assuming because of its size that it must have endurance to go anywhere on the globe for as long as it needs to.
Yeah, we can nearly go around the world at the equator on one full tank, so to say, at cruising speed or reduced cruising speed. We can go out for months and months. That's part of the mission, of course, because of the campaign we can do in Antarctica or in Arctic waters. We also have great craneage facilities on board for bringing even more supplies or more mission-specific equipment in containers that we can load on to the deck, having a massive 25-ton crane. Big boy, we call it. Yeah.
My God,
on the
mother of all
I know. That's the mother of all cranes, exactly. And that was a little project in the project. Our in-house project manager here, Andrea, took great pride in working on it to make it look really special. It's a super exciting project. I'm so happy to be part of it. Have a great model here in the office. Next time you're in town, you'll have to come by and I'll show it to you.
Oh, great. Obviously, its mission is the primary thing rather than any sort of breakthrough.
Of course, we try to make her as sustainable as possible within the given parameters of being able to basically travel the world and spend long periods of time unassisted in remote areas. We have optimized the hull for low resistance. We are operating at a fairly low fluid number, which means that in relation to the length of the vessel, we're operating at a relatively modest speed, which makes a huge difference in fuel burn. Detailed design of the bulbous bow is very particular. Shipyard was optimizing that to make sure there would be no interference with the sonars. So yeah, watch this space. If
a new owner of OCTOPUS, whoever that might be, came to you and said, "Okay, what can you do to, what does this boat need to get up to REV speed?" What would you, where would you go with that?
It's a good question. At the end of the day, every client is a unique client and has, in most cases, their own ideas as to what they would like to do, what they would like to achieve with the vessel. So one would have to sit down and carefully analyze his aspirations and his needs, his objectives. But for sure, there is a lot of space on OCTOPUS that could be used differently if you wanted to. One of the things we didn't discuss, but which was very specific, I think, to the owner for who we built it and designed it, was, for example, the big recording studio, which is in the prime space on the vessel in midship, right there by the pool. I don't know, have you been on board OCTOPUS? It's
I was on board once when it was dry dock.
Yeah, so that's right where you would expect to have a massive lounge overlooking the pool. That's the recording studio. So it's quite interesting. But yeah, whoever buys it, by all means, contact us. We can see if we can help. We'd be delighted.
One last thing, which is a conversation I've had with a couple of designers. the shape below the waterline. Whenever they had good tank tests about 30 or 40 or 50 or 100 years ago, since that time, not too much has changed beneath the waterline, has it?
It's all about fluid mechanics. So whether it's aerodynamics for planes or hydrodynamics for boats, so the rules of physics haven't changed either. So
Yeah.
you have to displace the water to move fluids. So the laws of physics are there. The smoother you can make that process of shifting the water out of the way, the better, i.e. the more slender the hull, the less wave resistance you will have at any given speed. So the beam is important, the length to beam ratio is important, and the angle of entry in the bow and the draft on the transom, basically. So most of the optimization today of bulbous bow, for example, are done in computational fluid dynamics. So, but there is nothing revolutionary going on. I think the future, you might see, more multi-hulls in an effort to reduce resistance further, so we can have more slender hulls.
It makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. It hadn't really gained, acceptance yet in the general public in the yachting sector, but
No.
in the fast ferry world, today most fast ferries are multi-hulls, and most of them are actually.
Yeah, and it's military, the trimarans that Oeino builds and others. So thank you very much for talking with me and with the Yacht Channel and taking the time. I want to go back and talk about skiing, though. I used to race against Otto Schutte.
Oh, really?
Did you know Otto?
Well, I know of him. I don't know him personally, but
Yeah,
you're a ski racer as well. Well,
yeah, I went to Colorado University, and he went to Denver, and we were big rivals. But I think we had most of the Norwegian ski team at our school. We all sort of went on to the pro circuit because we could party more. And, and he was a big success there also, because he could party better than just about anybody and still ski very well. He was a legend.
Well, next time we should talk about one of my favorite boats, which is Cloud Rake, because that's a ski boat. And I've been skiing on her or from her, both in Antarctica and in Arctic. And very few people actually realize how much beautiful skiing there is close to the coast. So we had the most amazing trips on this boat. And the boat is really designed as a ski boat. So ski and surfing, but the skiing, there are so many places in the world where you can find beautiful skiing, extreme skiing, but also less extreme. But in, whether it's Norway or Antarctica or Iceland or Greenland or even in Spain, Sierra Nevada, or even here locally here with a helicopter. If you take off from the port or outside the port of Monaco, you can be up in fantastic mountains doing skiing in 10, 12 minutes with a helicopter.
Really?
Absolutely. I mean, there are so many places. There are so many places. And this, I think, is going to, as we see the explorers and the yachts become more and more adventurous, I think that we'll see more and more of this. Younger people wanting to have very active holidays. It's a great combination, being able to ski from a boat, good physical exercise the whole day, coming back to the boat late afternoon, and just chill out, get some massage or a sauna, and you can eat and drink as a pig.
Well, that's good advice.
You've exercised so much during the day.
Maybe we'll do a podcast on yacht skiing.
Yacht skiing, absolutely.
All right. All right. Well, thank you very much, and hope to see you soon, one place or another.
Take care. Bye.
Okay. And that's it from the Yacht Channel. We will see you all here for the next podcast.